All right, my friend, welcome to the next episode of the Red Delta Project podcast and live stream Q&A here on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, where we take a fundamental approach to health and fitness to give you more power, control, and freedom over your healthy lifestyle. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly, founder of the Red Delta Project, and today's episode is sponsored by NOSC and Duonomic. NOSC Affordable Suspension Training Equipment is going to be featured prominently in the next book that I'm writing on suspension calisthenics exercises. They make the best designed suspension equipment out there at a very affordable price. The link is down below for that, as well as the Duonomic company, which makes the Elvia doorway pull-up handles. And down below, you can find the link to that, as well as enter in the Grind Style promo code for 10% off on your order. Hello, Emil. How's it going? Thank you very much for coming on in. Everybody's coming in. We talk, we hash it up. Give us a call. No big whoop. But today's topic, we're talking about how to make an effective workout routine that doesn't suck. And the title for this is kind of inspired by an article that I came across years ago on, I think it was on website design. And the basic premise that I loved that the author took was that they were like, look, everybody's trying to make things perfect and dial in every little detail and make everything as maximized and optimized as possible. And I find that a lot of people do the same thing with workouts. Like, how do I make it as effective as possible? And instead, the premise of the article was, look, just don't make a website that sucks, because as long as it doesn't suck, it's going to get the job done. And then you can put your time and attention and everything else into the things that are much, much more important in your business. And it's the exact same thing with your routine. For the most part, your workout routine isn't something that should require a lot of time and attention and fancy algorithms and formulas and stuff like that. It should be something that you have on a piece of paper, you follow it, and for the most part, you never have to really think about it. It's supposed to be something that kind of greases the alleyway towards what you need to do to get results, not stand in your way. And that's what we're talking about today, is what are the things about routines that people adopt that often stand in the way of doing the work that they actually need to do. All right. So here's the basic idea is I get a lot of questions from people saying, can you give me a routine? Can you give me a workout routine? What do you think of this routine and stuff like that? And for that approach, that's why I created the Grind Style Calisthenics Workout Program. It's a completely free program. It's an entire year worth of programming for using bodyweight training and calisthenics for building just raw muscle and strength. It's an entire year, 100% free. The last month, of course, is coming up in December. But right now you can get months 1 through 11 on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel. And I will be making a special page on the RDP website as well, so you can access it once it's all done and stuff like that. But if all you want is a routine, like just give me a routine, there you go. Grind Style Calisthenics Workout Program. Also buy the book, so you have the general idea of what Grind Style Calisthenics is all about to really maximize it. The link again down below there for that. But there, good, you got a workout program. But the problem is that we want a workout program that's going to deliver the goods, right? You just don't roll dice and go online and say, what's a good workout program for whatever kind of thing? Because you could just end up with any random workout and say, there, I've got a program. But let's be honest, you want a program that's going to be suitable and effective and do what it needs to do. And that's what we're talking about today. So let's get into a couple of these comments here that I can address right off the bat. I'm trying to get more proactive about addressing these rather than talking for 20 minutes and addressing things. But J-List comes on, hey, Matt, I do pistol squats for my squat progression. Due to previous discus hernia, which I managed to fully recover, thanks to you. Thank you very much. I have a problem with the left leg. Yeah, so exactly. You're going to have difficulty on one side or the other. And that's one of the beautiful things about unilateral exercises. And one of the things we want to take into consideration when we're making our workouts. Now, I'll be honest with you. When I sit down to a new client and they bring up things like herniated discs or strength in one side or the other, like thing like that, I need to know that in order to make a good program for them. I'm not just going to sit down and be like, okay, what do you want to do? Lose weight, build muscle, tone up. Okay, so does everybody else, yada, yada, nothing new there. And I just take them through their workout. If I did that, I would be a bad coach and personal trainer, because as a trainer, personal trainer, and that's what the personal means, my job is to craft a program that fits them. Okay. Now, if I didn't really care and I could just make whatever, I just say, go Google something that's going to be the same thing. And I've seen that happen many times with coaches and trainers. They'll fall in love with a particular program, a particular type of training or workouts, and they just give the same thing to everybody. At which point I consider that borderline fraud, because there's no personalization to that. There's no individual considerations taken into consideration. As a coach, my job is to look at the circumstances and say, we're going to craft something that's going to be a good fit for you, not just overall, but on a monthly basis, weekly, hell, even daily basis. I was at a party last night with a bunch of friends. We were celebrating a 40th birthday of another friend. And one of my friends and client who just started working with me said, okay, we're not going to work out tomorrow. And I was like, why not? She's like, I've been drinking. We're up way past midnight. We're exhausted. Like, there's no way I'm going to do a decent workout tomorrow. And I had to explain to her, like, no. See, here's my job as a trainer. I'm not going to see you today, and say, oh, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're hungover, whatever. Okay, here we go into the same routine we did last week and just put you through your paces. No, I'm going to like, oh, your energy level's lower. We change accordingly. Oh, your feeling is a little bit different, or your time is different. Whatever the circumstances change, now I can craft things to be different according to your circumstances. And that's why when I sit down with someone and I say, okay, let's start crafting this program, it can take well about an hour to at least get a basic program down. And even then, several weeks after that, to dial it in. It's not something I can just whip up like that. Otherwise, it'd just be a simple Google search. Because most of what makes a program not suck is dialing it in to your personal conditions, your lifestyle, your preferences, your proficiency. Someone comes up to me and they say, Matt, I hate doing push-ups. I'm like, okay, not doing push-ups, right? I'm not going to be like, no, push-ups are awesome. My program includes push-ups. You have to do push-ups. Again, that would make me a bad coach. That would mean I'm writing a program that sucks because I'm forcing you to do things that don't fit for you. So that's why a lot of times the rhetoric around personal training is the idea that when you meet with a trainer, that you show up and you're supposed to learn from the trainer, and the trainer's supposed to speak a lot and tell you everything, when actually it's the opposite. When I meet with someone for the first time, I'm actually getting taught by them. You know, I always tell people when I meet them the first time, rule number one, you're in charge. Okay? You're the one who's in charge of everything, not me, because you're the one who has all the information I need. I need to know your preferences. I need to know your schedule. I need to know what you've done in the past that's worked and hasn't worked. I need to know just what do you have for resources, especially home training, like sort of things like what equipment do you have and stuff. For me to just blindly guess, oh, okay, you're going to do this exercise, that exercise, this way and so forth and follow this routine, then there's no personalization there. And if I say you're going to do 100 push-ups a day and you have like traumatized PTSD flashbacks from when you were in gym class and people made fun of you for not being able to do 5 push-ups, that's going to be a bad routine. That's going to suck as a routine. But if you came to me and you're like, dude, I love push-ups. I love doing them like crazy and stuff. I want to do them every day. I'm like, okay, in that case, 100 push-ups maybe would be a good recommendation. It's not about what does the science say? What does the research say? What does the research say about the sets and reps and everything? That stuff almost takes zero consideration when I first start writing a program. I almost don't care about it at all because I first need to know your personalization. And that's why I tell people that the best person to often make, especially an initial program, isn't me or some expert on the internet. It's you, because you're the one who knows all that important information. You know you. You know your lifestyle and your preferences and your resources and what kind of exercises you can do and shouldn't do and all that. You're the one who has the most valuable information, not me. That's why the interview process takes so much time, and I can learn from you, and then I use that information to start building stuff out. Hey, Sneakiest is on. He asks, hey, Matt, what do you plan to do after you finish a 12-month of grind style calisthenics? Oh, very good question. So here's the way this is going to work. And one of the most important things to understand about the routine, because a lot of times we're searching for a routine because we think results come from the routine. Once we have the right routine, that produces results. This is not at all how fitness works. Results don't come from your routine. I don't care what your routine looks like. I don't care how scientifically dilated it is. It is not responsible for you losing weight, building muscle, getting stronger, and stuff like that. You get results from improving upon how well you can execute the routine. I always use the analogy of a routine is like a launch pad for a rocket, right? You got a rocket ship, and it's got a launch pad, and it's got a little upright that's holding it in place. A routine is like that launch pad. It points you in the right direction. It gives you something stable to push off of, but that's it. It does not get the rocket into space. Launch pads do not push rockets into space. The rocket goes up. That's what your routine does. It provides a point of position and stability. So once the December workout is done, we've got our launch pad. Congrats. Is that enough? Hell no. Is that enough to get you the results? No way in hell. Not even close. Instead, then all of next year, I tweak and I refine and I improve, and I'm going to make those workouts better and better and better and better. And that's what is going to come up after the 12th month. Plus, one of my plans for next year is I'm going to go through every one of those and make videos demonstrating how I would go through the workouts myself. They're going to be very long videos kind of thing. But right now, the way the program's set up is I have an introductory video saying, hey, gang, month 6 is here. PDFs are down below. You can download those. There's the workout Bible, which basically gives you the overview of what the workout's about and why we're doing it that way and the what it's based on. There's the workout log, which has the links to all the exercises. And then, of course, there's also the master list of all the GSC videos. So you can pick and choose exercises as you like. I think it's well over 100 links and videos at this point. And that's what the program is right now. So next year, I'm going to go through and be like, okay, month 1, videos or the PDFs and stuff are all down below. Now I'm going to go through the workout right now. I'm going to have someone follow me with a camera and stuff and demonstrate how I would do it. Now, that's a big mistake that also makes workouts suck, is people say, oh, this person did this workout. This person did this routine. That means I should do that, because if they got those results, then I will get those results on that, which is bunk, because they got those results not by adopting that routine. They found a routine at some point, they started to adopt it, and they refined it, and they got it to be better and better and progressed it over time. And what you're looking at is the end product. You're looking at what they've finally developed and customized a bespoke program for them. It's kind of like someone having a very customized, personally tailored suit. And it looks so good in that suit, and it fits just right. The cuffs and everything, every inch is dialed perfectly, right? And then someone's like, damn, they look good in that suit. And you take that very same suit and you put it on and you're like, do I look good? And it's like, it doesn't fit. The sleeves are too long. It feels uncomfortable when you're sitting down. It's not too small in some areas, too big in other areas. And you're like, this is good. Well, they look great in that suit. How come I don't look good in that suit? Because Dwayne Johnson looks good in a suit made for Dwayne Johnson. You need a suit that's made for you. Same exact thing with a routine. Same exact thing. Customization is what makes it fit and make it so, so sweet. Jay First, once again, asking, so I'm doing like 3 sets of 7 unassisted for my right quad on the pistol squats. And for the left, I do assisted. And so we're talking about assisted versus unassisted. And this is something to consider. So in this case, Jay First has the consideration of saying one leg is stronger than the other. Now, I could just go and say, all right, do this many reps on each leg, right? That's a general Googled program that you would just come up blindly with. But any program that you didn't have personal interaction with the creator of the program, particularly if you made it yourself, you don't know those sorts of things. So these things are just totally not being addressed. They're very important. They should be addressed, but random cookie cutter approaches don't address these. Now, it doesn't mean the cookie cutter approaches like my grind style calisthenics program isn't good. It just means you need to change it and modify it. So in this case, what I would do is I would say that you've got the unassisted on the right leg, very good, and assisted for the left. Now, here's the approach I usually take with unilateral exercises. When you notice there's a difference between one side or the other, like, oh, that's easier on that side, harder, more mobile and stuff, thinking to yourself, excuse me, investigate what's different. Why is there a difference there? Are certain muscles underactive? Like, okay, when I do it on the right side, I'm stronger because my glutes are really firing, but on my left side, glutes are not there at all. Good. You make a note in your little workout log. Work on glute activation. Like in the grind style program, we have glute activation exercises for the tension phase. So you make sure you're addressing that in the tension phase of the program. So that way you maybe have carryover, and then you notice, okay, glutes a little bit stronger on this next set. Okay, got progression there because more glute activation. I still needed assistance, but not as much. I used to be death gripping something with my hands. Now I can just kind of hold on my fingertips. Good, excellent. So you're looking to, excuse me, the party is catching up to me. So you're looking to bring those back in balance by asking, what is different? What is different? And that's why it's so important to, again, be your own coach, because you could look at that, go on the internet and say one side's stronger than the other, and there could be 50 people asking the same question, and everybody's got a stronger side for completely different reasons. One person, quads are underactive. Another person, glutes are underactive. Another person, you're tipping too much on one side, or you're twisting or something. There's a million reasons why that discrepancy could be there. But you, my friend, are the one with the front row seat to why that exercise is different, because you're the only one experiencing it. If I was training you one-on-one, I would be asking you these same questions. Like, what is different? I can look at it and be like, okay, your position is different and your hips aren't square on the left side or something. And you can observe yourself. We've got handy video cameras in our pockets now. You can use those. And you make note of these things, and then you modify and you address those differences over time. And that helps you take a routine that didn't care about those discrepancies to a routine that does. And therefore, you now have a routine that no longer sucks there as well. Excuse me, Paul Brous. Good to talk to you, my friend. Hey, Matt, I really feel you're coaching improvisation. I always tell my clients, Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this is what I used to do as a greenhorn personal trainer. Is I used to spend so much time writing out programs, on paper, because we didn't have smartphones back then, write it out perfectly and everything like that. Go and I'd see my client, like, all right, Jeff or Mary or whatever, here we go. I got your whole program here. I've worked so hard on it and everything. And they come in and they're like, dude, I am so hungover right now. And my right arm is killing me because I slept on it funny. Crumble, 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 toss. Okay, here we go. So that's the thing, is routines on paper that are perfect on paper don't always work perfectly in life. And we need to be flexible and open to improvisation. This is how dogmas kind of screw us over. Because if I say, I'm going to force you to follow this thing, I know you're hungover, I know your arm hurts, but we're still going to do like dumbbell rows or something, then that goes from a routine that's great on paper, but sucks in real life. And that no one cares if a routine looks great on paper. Posted on social media, it might get likes on it and stuff, but for the most part, it's how good is it in real life? Absolutely. And being open to that improvisation is super important. Hey, Dave Argentinu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you very much, Dave. Hey, Matt, do you think a heavy, light, medium works for support chains? How frequently should support chains be worked? Oh, this is such a good one. So support chains, we've got flexion, extension, and lateral and stuff. This is very good. So for the most part, heavy doesn't work so well for support chains. If you look at the broad spectrum of repertoire of exercises that address, anatomically speaking, anterior, posterior, and lateral chains, or as I call it, flexion, extension, and lateral, for the most part, you never go heavy on these things because it's not practical. It's usually not very safe. Whenever you find exercises that work those chains, you almost never find something that you can really go super heavy on or to a high degree of fatigue. Yes, there are exceptions. Deadlifts are an exception for the extension chain, or the stretch outs. on the straps, I do them for like sets of 5, super heavy, right? For flexion chain, the lateral one that I just added to the GSC program, another one there. But for the most part, that's not the way those usually work. You're usually addressing your support chains with moderate, even somewhat light tension phases for those, because it's not so much about working those chains and making them super strong. It's more about getting everything to gel and glue together and work together as a cohesive unit. That is primarily what makes it more beneficial for that sort of thing. So by all means, heavy is great. I love going heavy on those sorts of things, but it's not like the movement chains of push, pull, and squat, where you typically have the same range of intensity for the most part. There's always exceptions, but generally people are better off doing things for those that take the muscles, they work them for 10 to 20 repetitions or roughly 30 seconds or so, and it's maybe not necessarily going to failure. I'm thinking things like kettlebell swings, leg raises, things like that, where it's work, but it's much more about getting things to connect rather than working it hard like you do in the movement chains. So very good. And these are little things that I've just observed over the years of training clients, training myself and stuff. And that's something you want to consider as well when you're making your own programs. You could just notice something about how your body responds to some exercises. Like if you, for example, you're like, if I go too high volume, I'm more prone to injury, form gets sloppy, I lose motivation. You could go online and be like, guys, anytime I do high volume training, I experience these problems. And you could have 1,000 people say, no, high volume is the best way to go. And this is how but the bottom line is, if you experience like high volume just isn't quite my thing, end of discussion, my friend, right then and there. It's like, okay, high volume for whatever reason just isn't your bag. And when you notice, like anytime I'm doing over like 50 reps or, 10 sets in a workout for a tension chain or something like that, these issues start to crop up. Okay, back it off. Because the most valuable, potent ingredient in knowing what's going to be best for you so your program doesn't suck is your own personal experience. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what the experts are like, the science clearly shows blah, 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 evidence-based, yada, yada, yada. You do X, you get a poor result with consistent regularity. Don't do X. It's that simple. You learn from your experience. It's just like going to the tailor and saying, I think this thing, my coat needs an inch out of the back. Yep, let's take an inch out of the back, and you tailor it and you customize it for a perfect fit. And you get the bespoke program just like that. Let's talk about a couple other things. Let's see. Excuse me, pardon. KRNS, Yo Matt, do you have any skills you're looking to unlock? Just moving my body better. I'm trying to edit better YouTube videos. That's a skill I'm looking to unlock. I mean, I know what you mean and stuff. No, to me, the skill thing in calisthenics never had any interest to me whatsoever. And that's just because of my history with it. Like when I got into calisthenics training, if you said calisthenics skills, no one would have any idea what you're talking about. Hell, back then, if I said calisthenics, they think endless jumping jacks and crunches, right? And now the world of calisthenics, you see a ton of stuff on social media, with people doing really fancy things. Some of my mentors have called it circus tricks, right? That stuff has zero interest to me. Not that it isn't great, not that it doesn't make you stronger, not that you can't build muscle. All that stuff is great, wonderful. And again, that's the thing. Like if that's your bag, put that stuff into your routine. I coach a guy, I work at a calisthenics training gym, and he's like, I want to do planche push-ups, I want to do front levers, and I want to do freestanding handstand push-ups. So that's what we're focusing his program on. And he's made fantastic programming progress on all three of those. His front levers pretty much dialed in, right, at this point. Do I practice those things? No, I couldn't possibly care less. But again, that's me. I would be a bad coach if I was like, those things aren't that important. Don't do that kind of thing. You need to do, one-arm push-ups kind of thing, sort of thing. No, if it's not important to me, but it's important to him, it's important to put in his program. But if it's not important to me, it's not important to put in my program. And the skill stuff, it's just no interest, because my attitude towards calisthenics has always been, what are the type of experiences that I would do in the bodybuilding world? If I was on a chest fly machine, leg extension machine, bicep curls. What are those exercises that I would do on free weights and machines? Now, how do I replicate those movements with bodyweight training, right? Nobody's doing muscle ups in the machine world because you're not doing a pull down, then a dip, and then a pull down, and then a dip kind of thing. It doesn't correlate very well. And so that's just me. That's just my preference. Is it important? No, but it's important to me, so that's why I do it. Is it important to you? If it's important to you do those things, then absolutely, for sure. So a lot of stuff around what do you choose as far as your workouts, how do you do it, what exercises do you do, how do you program it? I'll be honest with you. A lot of the decisions that you make based around what makes a good program boils almost entirely down to just what do you like to do? What do you want? When I sit down to people and I start making a program, I'm just asking them, what do you like? What do you like to do? We talk about nutrition. I don't know, what kind of food do you like to eat? Do you like to eat breakfast or not eat breakfast? Do you like fasting or do you like eating several smaller meals a day? And a lot of our choices or my recommendations about the programs I make are based largely on what do you like? It's not based on the science says yada, yada, you're supposed to do it this way. This is it. No, it's just, I don't know, leg day, Wednesdays. How about Wednesdays? We'll work your legs on Wednesday. No, I do hockey practice Wednesday night. Not Wednesdays then, Fridays then. How about Fridays? Yeah, Fridays are good. Great. So people would look at it and like, okay, leg day on Friday. There must be a good reason. Yeah, the guy's got hockey practice on Wednesday night. I don't want to tear out his legs and he'll be slow on the ice. That's why we're making that decision. And when it comes to making a program that doesn't suck, a lot of those choices boil down to that, just that sort of thing. It's not a fancy formula or anything. It's just what fits your schedule, what fits your preferences. If you can just, because a lot of times, like I said, that launch pad for a rocket, the number one job of a launch pad for a rocket is just to provide stability, to keep it pointed in the right direction and provide the stability so it doesn't fall over. And that's what a good routine is for, is just what can you keep doing? What can you stick to? A lot of times when I'm making programs for people or I'm modifying it, I'm doing it purely based on you're having trouble sticking to it with this. We're going to change it so you can just stick to it. So if you have a program that you can relatively easily stick to, that's like 90% of what makes a routine good in the first place. Again, does it make you get results? No, it's just keep on the program. That's it. That is almost the entire job of your program. If you can stick to it, you're good. Consider your program a raging success. Now work on doing those exercises better because that's where you're going to get the results for. Let's see what other things we can address here. T-Bull coming on. Hey, Matt, how would you program a weighted calisthenics workout around dips, neutral grip, pull-ups, and lunges? Oh, I like those exercises. Someone's been reading my TMR Triad Muscle Revolution PDF. So the grind style approach, right? So grind style approach, especially in the past couple of months, use those during the strength phase, unless you're really strong and you can, bang out a lot of weighted stuff for higher reps. But you have the tension phase where you work on engaging the muscles. It's stability phase and you shift the work, coordination, good for warming up and stuff. And then your strength phase is whatever progression of calisthenics you can do for relatively low repetitions, really working that strength. So 5, 6, maybe as much as 8 repetitions of stuff, but really, really heavy. So that's where you would put that stuff. You would put the weighted pull-ups, dips, lunges in the strength phase. Then for the hypertrophy phase, that's flipping the script a little bit and going more high repetition, burning the muscle out like crazy, typically not doing weighted stuff at that point. Typically, some people maybe, if you can do 20 weighted push-ups or something like that, great, have at it. But typically that's not going to be weighted for most people. Plus you're fatigued from the weighted calisthenics. And generally with the strength phase of that, the way I always approach it is low repetitions, but manage the fatigue, not going to failure kind of stuff, saving several reps in the tank because we're developing strength. Strength is practice. Strength is a skill. When we, so going back to, unlocking skill, like heavier pull-ups, that's what skill I'm looking for because strength is a skill. So we want to practice it. We don't want to burn ourselves out on 1 or 2 sets. So you keep the fatigue very much managed. And that's how I generally address weighted calisthenics in that format, which is a good question because one of my future books is going to be all on weighted calisthenics as well. That's a very, very good question right there. Dave coming on again. I was thinking of heavy as relative. So like body saws for heavy, floor plank for light. Yep, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly it. It is relative. So when we're programming our workouts, it's easy to get kind of stuck into, this is a mistake I see people make where they don't recognize relative levels of intensity for them. So they'll program, like, for example, they'll be like, I do 100 push-ups straight up, like 100 push-ups in one set sort of thing. And we kind of get a little bit misdirected. So when it comes to that program being good, right? It's a launch pad. It provides stability, but the only other job it has is points you in the right direction. And the other mistake that I see people make is they do programs that are not pointing them in the right direction. But they're making the assumption that because it's hard or challenging or just working up a sweat or whatever, that it is in the right direction. But this is where understanding a little bit more of the nuances of specificity of programming comes into play, because your workout isn't going to be guaranteed to be effective just because it's hard. There's a million ways you can do a hard workout and it's complete crap. And that's a mistake I used to make. I used to do my workouts difficult wise and blood, sweat, and tears and so much effort. And oh my gosh, this is so hard and it's a challenge and everything. And I look back and I consider most of it a complete waste of time, because you only have so much time and energy and attention. And if you're putting time and energy and attention in one area and it needs to be in another, not only are you wasting your energy in one area, you're neglecting the thing you actually need to do. And this is how you understand it, is what is the functional capacity that you need to challenge in your workouts? So back to 100 push-ups. Like I used to be like, okay, 100 push-ups, and I'm going to do it outside in the hottest part of the day because it's harder when it's hot. And I'm not going to drink any water when I'm working out. And I'm going to do it on this hot pavement. I had this thing about surfaces that I worked on. I wanted it to be rough. I wanted to make my hands and my feet really raw. Like I never would wear gloves. I like, gloves are for sissies kind of thing, even though I'd be doing push-ups on like gravel driveway and it'd be digging into my hands and stuff. I'm like, no, this is making me tougher. All that stuff was making it harder, but it wasn't making me tougher. It wasn't making the exercise any more effective. It wasn't making me stronger. It was just making it a pain in the ass. But I was going off the assumption that, well, if it's harder, it's got to be more effective. Not at all. In fact, you want almost everything about your workout routine to be as easy and efficient as possible. You want everything as streamlined and slick as you can possibly make it. Easy is the way to go, except for the one thing that you're trying to challenge. So it should be like 99% really easy, 1% totally balls to the wall, hard and difficult. And it's knowing that 1% to make it hard that you should focus on. And that boils just down to, well, what are you trying to challenge? What are your goals about? If you want to build strength, challenge your strength. You want to build endurance, challenge your stamina. You want to improve your mobility, challenge your mobility in these sorts of things. Remember, the only stimulus we can create is a functional stimulus, telling the body how it needs to work better. And we do that by challenging its ability to work in that specific way. And anything that's challenged you outside of that is a waste of time. It's drag. It's just eating away time and energy and effort you could be spending towards the few things you really do need to focus on. So like that platform, make sure it's pointing you in that right direction. Because if it's pointing in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter if you've got all the fuel and speed in the world, you're still going to miss the mark. More questions here. Coming up, any advice when you can't do daily exercise due to a busy week? So here's another one, right? Schedule conflicts. A lot of the things that I recommend are just what fits your schedule, just what fits your sort of thing. So this is where a lot of times the considerations between split training and full body training come into play. Lots of people make arguments for one or the other, why one is better than the other. Most of it complete, just blah, 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 internet mumbo jumbo, doesn't mean anything, because it boils down to what can you do to just consistently work a muscle a couple times a week. That's the only requirement you need. Can you work a muscle fairly hard, assuming you're doing strength training and stuff, just a couple times a week? I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you do it with a freestyle approach like what I have, or split training, or upper lower split, or push pull split. It does not matter. It only matters if you find one way is like, well, that just jives with my preferences and schedule better. Then great, go that way. But muscles are like nails. You just got to hit them. You just got to hit them down into the ground. Like, that's all you got to do. I don't care how you hit it. If you hit it Monday or Tuesday or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever, just hit it. So when we're looking at difficulties with schedule, think about what's easier for you to maintain consistency and how well you can use those muscles. So for example, I have individuals who travel a lot for work. And it's like, I could see you once a week for a while, then 3 times a week for a while, then not at all, kind of thing. So when it's all helter-skelter like that, it's really hard to make split training work very well, because you need very consistent, regimented workout routines to make split training work. Otherwise, you get like 15 upper body workouts that are awesome and 1 lower body workout, and it's just kind of all higgly-piggly. So when things are a little off kilter like that, maybe full body routines, and make sure it's simple enough so that you don't have 20 million different exercises, so it's hard to fit into the schedule. But if you're more regimented and you're like, dude, I just like mentally and emotionally to focus on, like, if I'm going to work my legs, I want to just focus on legs, and that's it for the whole workout, just legs, and be done with it. Great. Split routine training can be very good. Or case in point, sometimes when people are like, I can never get my legs in, I hate doing legs, it's not just I hate leg day. Fine, we won't have leg day. We'll just have 1 leg exercise each workout. And that way you still get everything done, because again, you just need to hit the muscle. Doesn't really matter how, but by making it something in every workout, we make sure that we address the legs to some degree every single workout. Muhammad, hey dude, big fan, viewers from Egypt. Thank you very much. Great. I just wanted to ask you what to do if I always get shoulder, neck, upper back pain. My goal is hypertrophy using bodyweight exercise. Thank in advance. So I'll leave it to the folks in the RDP community. So we've got pain when we're working out, particularly upper back and stuff. How would we change our programming around this when we have pains, when we have aches and pains, that sort of thing? Here's what you do. Number 1, recognize if there are particular exercises that are specifically irritating that. Like, oh man, if I do rows, it gets really bad on rows. It's like, okay, maybe take that exercise, put it on the back burner for now. Right? It's still a good workout exercise, just don't do it right now. Take it out of the program. Second is recognize what's causing the issue. And now for you, I would bet money you've got too much scapular elevation that's habitually happening with your workouts. You're just up here like this. This happens all the time. People are like this all the time. So our upper traps are super strong, lower traps not even in the picture very much. So good. Now we may have something that needs to be addressed, and that's a skill, because we need to get good at engaging those lower traps. So let's put some lower trap work in every single workout we're doing. We write that into the program. Lower trap work, things like just holding down in a dip position, maybe on straps, maybe on parallettes, maybe just pushing down into the floor when we're sitting, and we've got maybe some table bridges, for example. So if I was working with you one-on-one, I'm like, let's try some table bridges and just see how that feels. Like, are you hunching up? Are you too much protracted? Does it feel like that area is aggravating it? Or are you pushing down as you should? And you're like, oh, that feels so much better. That's giving me relief from that shoulder pain. Good, awesome, great. Table bridges, write it into the program. Warm up with it every single time. We want to practice. And that's how I will address that sort of thing with the programming for around certain issues and pain. And that it's a chronic issue there, but a lot of times when people are like, oh, if my knee or something's going on and with a joint or something, if it's really a mystery, get it checked out. Bottom line is we don't want to accept pain, and we don't even want to work around pain. We want to fix pain. I get questions sometimes from folks who are like, okay, I've got this injury or I've got this pain or something like that. How do I still keep my gains or keep making progress and stuff as much as, as if I didn't have it? And the answer is you don't. There's just no way possible. The human body, whenever you have any sort of pain, know it's going to hold you back. Full stop. Yes, you can work around it. Yes, you can Band-Aid it and stuff like that, but know that you are being held back by that injury or that pain to some degree. So you want to get it fixed and solved as quickly as possible, because once you do, you're going to take off that limitation, and then we can bring back those rows or whatever exercise may be problematic for it, and you're going to get all the better results from it. Raphael, good question here. Why isn't it okay to do 3 sets of 50 push-ups for gaining mass if I can reach to failure? That's a very good question. And again, for building muscle, like, here's the bottom line as we understand it is, it's very hard to correlate a direct cause of muscle growth with any type of physical training. Anytime we're like, okay, it's definitely going to failure makes you build muscle. And then they take a bunch of people and they're like, you guys go to failure. And it's like, they didn't build muscle. Oh, damn. Okay, it's not failure. Okay, high rep training, low rep training, high weight. We've tested a million things. Anytime we isolate one thing, it never produces a reliable result for building muscle. That's why we kind of just have to go with a generalization of, if you want to build muscle, typically stuff that just progressively works your muscle harder over time is about the only thing I can recommend. Now, in that case, 50 push-ups and stuff, we can certainly build muscle as long as you're fatiguing the muscle to a good degree along a big range. I mean, you can build muscle with high rep training, low rep training, high volume, low volume. It all works. It all works. So you find this online where people are like, this is the best way to build muscle. And then someone's like, that's ridiculous because I do the exact opposite and I build muscle. I'm like, yeah, guys, because it both works. As long as you're progressively working the muscle's work capacity, time and tension, that's about as far as we know, as far as creating that stimulus for hypertrophy. Now, when we get more higher into either of the extremes, so higher reps, we have a harder time working the muscle's work capacity because we're starting to become limited not by the muscle's work capacity, but by other things like just mental strength, boredom, cardiovascular technique. There's other things that can start to break down under endurance rather than the actual work capacity of how well you can work the muscle. Same thing on the other side, right? Very high intensity, low repetition. There's not much volume going on there, so we run into nervous system limitations and stuff. Basically, what we want to do when we're trying to stimulate that hypertrophy is run into the limitations of the actual muscle fibers themselves, not the limitations of cardio, mental strength, technique, all these other things. We don't want that to be the limitation. Remember, we want to gain that which we challenge. And for building muscle, we want to challenge the work capacity of the actual muscle itself. If you're running into other limitations, you're going to be reaching failure due to the limitations of those other things. Meanwhile, the actual work capacity of the muscle fibers isn't really challenged that much. Not going to be the best protocol for that. So absolutely, you certainly can build muscle if you're really actually making the muscle work to a very high degree in those 3 sets of 50. But here's the other thing I wanted to mention about a good program. Remember, no program ever produces results if it does not progress. Okay? I don't care how great your program is. I don't care what your training philosophy is and stuff like that. If you're like, I do 3 sets of 50 push-ups, 6 months later, what do? Well, 3 sets of 50 push-ups. You're going nowhere because you do not get results from your program. You do not get results from hard work. You do not get results from exercise. You get results from your program hard work and exercise improving over time. It's progression that we want. And that's the whole point of a good routine. The entire point of having that stability and pointing you in the right direction is to give you a good foundation upon which now you can progress. You can progress how well you're exercising. So in the case of muscle hypertrophy, you're either working the muscle harder or longer, but hopefully both. Okay, so it's like, okay, I was doing 3 sets of 50, and then 6 months later, I'm like, well, how you doing now? I was like, dude, now I'm up to 4 sets of 40, and I'm doing archer push-ups now. So it's much harder, or weighted push-ups and stuff. Working the muscle harder. You shouldn't be like, keep doing the same thing. Something's improving each time. And that's the real job of what a good routine does. It doesn't get you results. It allows the door to be open for progression. And it's the progression that gets you the results. Let's see, Daniel coming on. So Matt, do you think that the program that is not the most effective, but I can stick to it, makes it the most effective program for me? Absolutely, 100%. But remember though, there are limitations to that. You can only stretch that band so far. So you could be like, I want to build big, strong, honking Tom Platzian legs. Great, awesome. Well, what do you like to do? I like to do cross-country running. Okay. You can build muscle running. I know friends who've done it. My friend Jason, who I was a bike team member of in college, I mean, his thighs were huge, and all he ever did was run and ride his bike. That was all he ever did. But when it comes to pointing you in the right direction, that's usually fairly self-evident. So if you're like, this is the right program for me, but it has nothing to do with actually training the physiological characteristics you want to advance, it doesn't work so well. Like I could all day, I could be like, I want to be a NASA scientist. I hate math, but I love Shakespeare. I could study Shakespeare all day long. I'm not going to be a good NASA scientist, right? So it's usually pretty self-evident though. It's like, no, you're not going to build a lot of muscle just doing jumping jacks all day, even though that's what you like to do and what you can stick to right now. You're going to have to at least play the game according to the rules of Mother Nature that are dictating those physiological processes. But beyond that, absolutely. If someone's like, dude, you can't build muscle doing that, it's like, yeah, but I'm still progressively working the muscle harder, even if they're like, you can't build muscle with isometrics. Yeah, but if you're sticking to it and you're progressing it, you're going to stand a hell of a lot better chance of building muscle with isometrics than you would with other things that you have trouble sticking to and have trouble progressing as well. Omar, what's the difference between strength from calisthenics and strength from weightlifting? None. Bottom line. So if we're talking real bare bones physiological strength, it's very simple. It's just how much tension can be produced by the muscle, how much total tension, time for amount of time, that's power. But strength is like just how much tension can a muscle produce or a group of muscles produce in a movement pattern. And in that regard, it's universal. It's strength is strength. It doesn't really matter what type it is. But there's strength of muscle and strength of movement. So remember, strength is a skill, and strength is also specific to what we're doing. So this is why there's no such thing as like being strong at everything because you do one thing. I know we like to think that. You've got the one person who's like, dude, if you have a 500-pound back squat, your legs will be strong for everything. I guarantee you that's not the case. I could take you for a 50-mile bike ride out here in Vail and break your legs. And you're like, but I can back squat 500 pounds. Yeah, but you can't ride up this incline here because you don't have the strength ability to do that here on the bike, and vice versa. There's no such thing as any physiological ability that carries over perfectly to everything else. I've taken people who are very strong in one area and I have them do seemingly a similar thing and they're completely weak in that other thing because it's so specific. So the basic fundamental movement patterns are the ones that usually have the best carryover: push, pull, squat, that sort of thing. But when you are like, I want to be strong at X in this particular way, make sure you're training that particular way in order to be strong at that movement. But when it comes to the general physiology of just how much tension a muscle can produce, just do whatever you want. Strength is strength in that regard. Dave coming on, Pavel, saying, quote about hypertrophy, get a pump with moderate weight. Yeah, and moderate's relative too. This is a obstacle that I ran into several years ago. I took a job working at a 55 plus gym. So it's kind of a silver sneakers kind of thing. Really interesting kind of approach. So everybody was senior citizens and stuff, retired seniors and stuff. And that's an interesting generation to be working with because, people in the younger generations, we grew up around exercise. We grew up with knowing this sort of thing. But that generation, because I just exercised and was just getting started in Vermont, especially for my generation, I still, would go out running and people would stop their cars next to me like, do you need a ride? Like, why are you running? They didn't understand exercise. That people would do it. If I said, I want to work out, they'd be like, go help Farmer John load in hay. Like, what are you doing push-ups on the floor for? That would a waste. Go to work. So that generation, relatively speaking, with light, moderate, heavy, that sort of thing, that's why we base things on repetition levels. Because they would be, I would give them a lot of like TRX work because they could be in control that way. and they'd be like, oh, okay, I'm working really hard. This is a really heavy level of resistance. And I'd be talking to them, and eventually I'd be like, so you think that's heavy, huh? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, you've done 30 reps. That's not heavy. Like, but it seems heavy. It's like, that's not heavy. 30 reps is not heavy at all. 4 reps is heavy. It's something where you're like, I can barely do 2. That's heavy. So this perception of light, moderate, and heavy, we got to be aware of these sorts of things, because we often bring perceptions into our programs that can skew them a little bit to what we think is good, and maybe it really isn't. So that's why we want to base it off of more of a numerical data set. It's like, well, you've done 30, that's a lightweight. It doesn't feel light. That doesn't, well, your perception of light is, we got to change it around a little. And I'd bring them down or do a harder exercise, and they'd be like, 15, struggling with 15. And they're like, oh, that was way heavy. I'm like, that was still pretty moderate, actually, but it's heavier. So we're heading in the right directions. Kickboxer 69, once again, good to see you, my friend. Hey, Matt, how often should I change my training routines in order to progress? Oh, this is a fantastic question. So when it comes to changing things up, there's 2 ways to look at it. One, if you're doing something and it's working for you, rule number 1 of a good game plan is stick to the game plan. One of the big mistakes I see people make is they come in, they're like, Matt, this diet and this workout, everything's working great. I'm losing weight, feeling stronger, feeling great, awesome, wonderful. I'm going to go change everything now. And it's like, no, why? Because every time you make a big change, you're literally just rolling the dice as to what it is. It's like being in a slot machine in Vegas that's paying out, and you're like, I'm going to leave this because it's paying out, and I'm going to try this other one, which is totally unsure and untested, right? It's a gamble is what I'm saying. So if you're doing something and it's good and it seems to be working, just keep going. I don't care if you've been doing it for the past year and a half, right? Just keep going. This idea that you got to change your program every 60 days or whatever, that's usually more of a marketing tactic by magazines and stuff. They were like, you have to change your program, therefore you have to buy the new program or buy the next magazine and stuff like that. The Grind Style Calisthenics program changes every month, just because that generally tends to be a good way to go about it. But if I come out next month, here's month 12, and you're still on month 10, and you're like, yeah, but month 10 is really still working for me, stay to month 10. Don't change it by any means. The second way to look at it, though, is if you find something you may change, like you have a change of preference or schedule or something, like, I've been doing this, but these bridges are great, but boy, I really miss those kettlebell swings. I really miss the kettlebell snatches. Really want to do kettlebells. Change it. If you've got a reason to change it, don't be like, I've got to keep doing this for the next 6 months or 6 weeks or what. No, just change it. If you've got better, go to better. Full stop. Just do it right away, because don't put it off, kind of thing. And you don't have to change the whole program either. So like I said with the example there, your whole program could be great, but you're like, I don't like the bridges, but I miss kettlebell swings. Well, then just change that one little tweak. Again, the bespoke Italian suit, right? You don't go in and be like, all right, burn the suit because it's a little tight in the back. We got to start the whole thing from scratch. No, it's like taking an inch out of the back, and that way you're dialing it in. It's tweak, 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 and that's how it gets good. So make changes when making changes warrants it, but don't make changes just for any old, nilly-pilly reason kind of thing. Change with purpose is what I'm saying, and that way you have a much greater chance of not just gambling away your results. Bob Dole, heard Serge Nubret. I always called him Nurbret. I don't know. Dyslexia is coming back, I guess. Lifted moderate weights, 8 to 12 reps, and up to 10 sets with little rest in between. Yeah, so you're always going to find there's that, quote, hypertrophy rep range. Because, again, it's down to 2 factors. When it comes to conditioning your muscle, you've only got 2 variables. You got how much tension is in the muscle and how long is it there for. And especially when it comes to building muscle, we just want to work our muscle work capacity, which is the combination of the 2. So generally, if you have a lot of one, you have little of the other. But we need both. We need a lot of strength and good endurance. So a lot of strength, little endurance, probably shortchanging the endurance side of things. A lot of endurance, little strength, probably shortchanging that sort. Doesn't mean you can't make some progress, but most people find that they just have a better chance of improving both in that middle rep range. And that's why that whole hypertrophy rep range kind of came into being, that 8 to 12 rep range kind of thing, which is a good place to be. But the perception that a lot of people fell into is like it's like borders around states. You cross this imaginary line and suddenly everything's different, right? It's not that way in muscle. Like I remember back in the day, I literally would tell people like, okay, if you did 12, you're building muscle. 13, you're building endurance. Like as if the body knew or cared that you did one extra repetition and suddenly the stimulus was completely changed and radically modified. It's not at all, because it's all time and tension. Time and tension is those two things. So that middle range, probably good. But again, this is your program, you're dialing in. So sometimes people, they find they do better if they go towards the heavier side of things. Plenty of people out there saying like, well, I always did well 6 to 8 reps. Great. Some people are more on the endurance side of things. Like I love a good pump and I really felt I did better if I was at least 12 to 15. Wonderful. Always go with what seems to be working for you. It doesn't matter. It's like, Serge, you used to do 8 to 12, but if you're killing it at 20, then keep killing it at 20 kind of thing. Go off of your experience. A couple more here real quick, folks. Thank you very much for coming on. I do appreciate it. Gabrielle coming on. Hey, Matt, long-term progression is key. Oh, awesome point, my friend. I wonder, given this premise, maybe there isn't so much difference between doing 35 push-ups one day or 5 a day for 7 days in a week. Thoughts? So this is a very, very, very good question, is what about spreading out sort of thing? So once again, we go back to what is the fundamental challenge that we're imparting upon the body. Doing 35 at once is going to feel different than breaking it up. And there's lots of different ways that this changes what's going on with the body. 35 at once, you could get to that last 30 or the last 5, excuse me. And you're just like, yeah, grinding. Oh man, the muscle, it is burning. It is, work capacity is super, super challenged. Holy mother of God. And just kind of collapse down. And you're like, oh my gosh, my muscles feel like they're just quivering jello. Versus the 5, you could be like, yeah, 5, getting really good, perfect technique every time. I'm getting good range of motion. Maybe you're between like a couple chairs, getting a good mobility stretch in the chest. Awesome, wonderful. So the amount of work is the same, but you notice the stimulus is very different because you're really pushing that work capacity with 35 straight, and maybe you're working on better technique with the 5 broken up. So it's all down to what can you make progress on? What sort of thing are you really challenging? You could be like, well, what if I do 1 push-up, every hour for a week or so? But if you're not really challenging and improving and progressing your work capacity or your range of motion or whatever that is, don't expect it to be all that much more effective. So you modify and you change things according to what is it challenging. You gain that which you challenge. Excuse me. Hey, man, great channel. Thank you very much. I don't like working out, and time is a huge bottleneck. Would micro workouts with compound movements be most efficient? Oh, absolutely, very efficient. It's funny, I was at this birthday party last night, and one of the people who hosts these things, a longtime friend and client of mine. Every time we get together, she's like, "That's the best trainer in the world," and I'm like, "Oh, geez," every time. But it's naturally, people started asking me questions and stuff, and I got on the topic of like, well, my workouts. The ironic thing is, we trainers, the best trainers, we don't work out that much because we just don't have time. And people are like, but you work in a gym. It's like, exactly. I work in a gym. I don't have time to work out all day. I'm working. So one of the people there said, so your workouts are a lot shorter, probably only like 45 minutes or something. I'm like, yeah, try 10, and they looked at me like I had 2 heads kind of thing. I'm like, no, seriously. Like oftentimes I have 5 minutes between clients or meetings or whatever. It's like, I literally have 5 minutes, got to make something happen, go kind of thing. So yeah, compound movements, micro workout strategies, like I put in my micro workouts book, link down below, shameless plug. When you know what you need to address in your workouts and you get rid of all the fluff and the filler, you can be so much more effective. The micro workout strategy I have isn't about trying to make workouts shorter. It's about being extremely direct with your purpose of programming And when you do that, you don't need a lot of work. You just don't. It's like that scene in The Karate Kid where they got the hammer and the nails, focus, Daniel-san. It's like, bang, one hit and the nail goes in. It's the same thing when you have that kind of focus and it's like, this is exactly what I need to accomplish. This is exactly what I'm doing. And this is exactly the precise, efficient way to just go directly to it. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. You can get a lot done relatively quick just because you don't need the other stuff that was wasting your time and a distraction. Phantom MC, is it okay to change the exercise if I feel like I hit a plateau, regular push-ups to ring push-ups and so forth? Absolutely. So when it comes to changing things up, one of the big mistakes that people make is they just change up radically what they're doing, where they're like, okay, I'm doing like Tabata push-ups. Now I'm going to make a change. What are you going to? I'm going to go swimming. It's like, whoa, you just went way off the reservation with that one. So when we make change, we want to make sure that the changes we're doing is going to improve what you're doing somehow. Don't make change for change's sake. So when you're looking at those ring push-ups, ask, what is it about those ring push-ups that's going to bring something a little extra or better to those floor push-ups or handle push-ups or whatever you were doing before? If you can tell if it's like, well, this will be fun because it'll work on the stability, or it's just going to give me some rotation, and it's just going to maybe even feel better, whatever, right? Then it's like, okay, great. You want to change with purpose, not just random, shiny object, toy syndrome sort of thing. It's not going to be effective just because it's harder. That's the big thing. We need to make sure it's hard for the right reasons. There could be 50 reasons why it's harder that aren't going to move the needle for you. But if you can be like, yeah, I need better activation of my chest. Oh, when I do them on the rings, I feel in my chest because I got to squeeze and keep things in tight. You got a winner. Good for you. Kalash, Nikov, a couple last ones here. Hey, Matt, love tension chain videos. Thank you very much. Work like a charm. Absolutely. But I can't seem to activate triceps during push-ups, push-downs on a table. I feel my flexion chain working, as it should. That's a good thing, too. Can share any tips. So I'll try and demonstrate. Well, you can't see my table here kind of thing. But here's what may be the factor, is when you're doing your tricep push down on the table, you may be a little forward with your arms like this. So you're pushing down, and that's going to engage your tricep for sure. But try bringing back like this. So my elbows are back, or maybe just here. So you're pushing downwards. And that's for those who do like cable tricep presses. The more forward you are, the more that your anterior or flexion chain needs to work to stabilize. When you're here, it's much more controlled and you can drive down with the triceps. So try pushing down. Might be a good idea, not so much on a table, but if you can get a hold of like some rings or some suspension straps, and you push down and you can kind of move your hands back and forth and be like, oh, there's the triceps. Oh, they're working now. And that would be a good way to kind of feel it out on those isometrics. All right, my friends, my voice is starting to go a little bit raw, and I need to go grocery shopping because unless I want onion and bread for dinner tonight, I need to go get some actual food. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming on, asking your awesome questions, being a part of the RDP community. As always, check out the references to resources that I mentioned in the videos here, micro workouts, grind style calisthenics, all that stuff is down below in the description. Don't forget the sponsors, NOSC, suspension, training equipment, and the Duonomic doorway pull-up handles as well. And we will do this again next week. Thank you very much. As always, talk to you then. Till then, be fit and live free.